Today's topic is going to be about Group D of ELeague. I think it's the best group in the tournament because I think there are three very strong teams right now in this group. So I'll first go over the fourth team, which I don't think has a chance, Heroic. Uh, what to say about them? I don't think S3 Tag or Yugi have lived up to LAN, basically. I haven't seen anything from them ever since they've been part of the roster, and it's been months now. I feel like they probably need some kind of roster change if they want to go forward. I'm not exactly sure who they'd get, but I think that's the obvious choice for them. So moving on from that, I guess I'll add a little bit. I think Nico is okay, Danish Nico. But beyond that, the real meat of this group will be the three other teams: Team Liquid, SK, and Astralis. So first, I'll start with Astralis. Astralis was obviously the best team in the early part of the year. They were one game away. I guess you could think of it as one round away from making an era if they had beaten FaZe in that finals at Kiev, but they didn't. So they were denied that. But beyond that, they've been a very strong team, always getting top fours, always getting to the playoffs until this last ESL New York where they ran into Liquid. But I've already covered that in my other video. But basically, I think the idea of why Astralis is losing out in terms of performance is that their individual skills are going down. So the pure tactical structure is fine. I think their teamwork is pretty good. I mean, there's like some weird hijinks every once in a while, but beyond that, the entire problem with the team is just individually they can't outmatch the other teams right now. I feel like among the elite teams, they're on the weaker end in terms of just pure raw skill. But because of that, like it also exemplifies how good they are at their different roles and how amazing it is if you just think about it, how consistently they are just in terms of being overmatched just in raw talent. Beyond the individual skills, though, I feel like there's another problem with this team, and the problem is overpass. Dupree did an interview with Slingshot, and basically he said they have lost confidence on overpass, and they specifically cited the loss against Team Liquid and the loss against Gambit. Now, the loss against Team Liquid had a bit of caveat because they were kind of fucked up conditions, and Team Liquid wasn't that good of an overpass team at that time. And overpass against Gambit, I thought that was a huge anomaly. Like, yeah, I think Astralis did not play well at all. I'll give them that. But Mo had a fucking game of his lifetime in that map. So I'm not exactly sure how they could think their overpass was weak, because in between those two games, they also played SK on overpass and fucking stomped SK on overpass. So I'm not exactly sure where they think their overpass is. And I've made this point last time, but I really hope this isn't like a Freiburg train scenario where they just give up one of their best maps just because they got stomped on. They had one bad experience on it, but it's starting to feel that way. As for so I feel like Astralis, it's a strange team, right? Because it's hard to say if it's really weird to say they'll go out, but I think they will likely go out here, and the reason is because of the other two teams. First is SK. SK has, yeah, they lost to Astralis at the Krakow Major, but I feel like they should have learned something from that loss. Specifically, Fallen figured out some things about what the hell Device was doing, because Device went full on Inception in that series and basically knew where Fallen was going before Fallen knew where Fallen was going. And neither team is near that peak potential. So, but between the two teams, I feel SK has stronger firepower. Particularly, coldzera is still a fucking god. So, yeah, coldzera in general hasn't had great matches against Astralis, but this is like a weaker Astralis, so I don't think it'll be as much of a mitigating factor. Like, and what I mean by weakened Astralis is, even if you just look at the pure team play aspects, I don't think they're as strong as they once were. And I think that's why, if I had to pick one particular reason as to why Astralis was more effective against Coldzera than other teams, it's because their team play aspects have generally been better. Their structure has been better, and that's sort of falling apart a little bit. And I think that's all you need in order for Coldzera to get his. So that's why I favor SK over Astralis. As for SK themselves, though, they also have huge problems going into this group that you want to look out for. First, I think the biggest problem, relative, I guess, to where he was, is Fur. I think Fur was a pure god for most of 2017, but right now, I'm not feeling the same impact from him, particularly on the CT side, and it's not really his fault, I guess, in the sense that this couldn't have possibly gone on forever. Like, he was literally running into people, and people knew he was coming, and he'd still kill them. Like, how many times is that really going to happen? So that's what you want to look out for the SK games, is if Fur is just running out there and killing people again, because if he's doing that, then that's going to be a huge problem for both Team Liquid and for Astralis. Beyond that, there are a bunch of just small mistakes, like too much over-aggression, too little, like, it feels like the burnout before the Krakow Major still hasn't, like, worn off or whatever from SK. Like, they're not really in tune with each other yet. It feels like they still need a bit more time to get back into that grinding mode. And I think the biggest glaring flaw right now in SK, I think it's their Inferno. Specifically, their, like, setup, where before it was Fallen and Fur on B, and right now it's Fur and Phelps, but it doesn't really make much sense to have Fur and Phelps there, just because they don't really play it very well. Like, we've seen it a lot of times by now, so I've never seen them play it particularly well. And if you just look throughout the history of this SK lineup on Inferno, they changed the B side a lot. So I think nearly every player except for Taco has played on that side. But they still haven't found a really good solution for it, and I think they think it's a problem just because Inferno is such a contested map. Because beyond Team Liquid, I don't think there's any elite team where you can say they are favored on Inferno against any other elite team. So maybe that's why they want to, like, keep changing it, keep finding a new solution. But that's another important thing to look out for when you're going into this group, is how is SK setting up on Inferno CT side, because I think that's been a huge weakness for them. And finally, I guess I'll point out Taco. Taco's been a bit weird in, like, the way he's been playing recently, a bit more aggressive, a bit more loose. I'm not really liking it just because there's already too much aggression on this team. And finally, there is one other aspect you have to think about when it comes to SK, is the fact that they can switch up their style if they really need to. So in that sense, I have less fear about SK than I do about Astralis, because Astralis has a very fixed structure, right? Like, everybody knows their roles, everybody has a specific role, but who are you going to switch around if you decide to switch roles? Like, for instance, you can switch Kirby and Dupree, but Kirby's been super off. So yeah, Dupree can play Kirby's role, but can Kirby play Dupree's role? I'm not sure. Whereas with SK, Fallen, Fur, and Phelps all have different types of aggression, but I think all three of them are fucking amazing at it, just in very different ways. So if they ever decide to, like, switch up who is the main priority on, like, who is going to be the main star player to play around, at least on the aggressive end, they could always switch from Fur to somebody else if they don't think Fur is, like, in form right now. So I don't think it's going to happen at this event. It might happen if they fall out, but I have SK going out either first or second, just because they have the easier draw. I think they play against Heroic first, and then they just have to win a best of one. If not, they'll just play a best of three against whoever's down there. So I feel like SK is getting out of here. And then the final team, I think the team favored to win this entire group is Team Liquid. And the reason I think Team Liquid is going to win is because they're trending up while the other two teams are trending down. So SK's form has been slowly getting weaker. I think Coldzera is still a fucking god, but beyond that, everybody else, like the entire team, it feels off for me. And that's like, and you see a symptom of that, of like their setup on CT side Inferno, right? And then Astralis, on the other hand, like, yeah, their tactics and structure is pretty good, but their team play is a bit off. Their individual form is really off compared relative to the other elite teams. Whereas Liquid's relative form is fucking amazing. Twist is great. ELeague is great. JDM is doing well. Nitro has found like a good role for himself where he can impact the game. So like you just ignore his stats. Just look at how many times he breaks open a fucking site by himself, and that's fucking great. And then Stanislaw, I think Stanislaw is gonna surprise people just because he had such a fucking terrible event at ESL New York. But in terms of pure positioning, I think he played fucking great. Like he had so many times he found a opening behind enemy lines on both sides of the map. I feel like Stanislaw will be a huge force for this team once he's adjusted to his role as a lurker or whatever it is you want to call him, second caller, and he's gonna bring huge impact. And with all 5 players going up, like when you have a player who brings a strong impactful role to like a different side of the map, like Stanislaw, which is I think he's going to be doing here. It just increases your tactical diversity or your tactical strength in your like overall structure, anyway. So it's going to be really good for Liquid, I think. And beyond that, I feel like Liquid's map pool has been getting stronger, if that's possible. Like, I'm not even sure if they have like a particularly like terrible instant loss map right now. Let's see. Like they're good on Cobble, good on Mirage, good on Inferno, decent on Overpass, decent on Terrain. Like, I guess their nuke is a bit off, but it's not even that bad. It's like they have a bunch of maps they can play, but I think what makes Team Liquid so fucking strong is that their best maps are maps other people want to play, Mirage and Inferno. So I think Liquid should get out of this group. But even if they don't and they drop down to like the best of 3 part, I think in terms of like the structure, in terms of the individual form, in terms of like the rising strength of the team, I think they should still be favored to get out even if they fell down to the best of 3 parts. So I have Team Liquid going out first and SK going out second. But Astralis, it's hard to bet against Astralis just because their structure, their team plays, like their overall strategy is just so good, right? But I'll go with Liquid and SK. I think they'll make it out of ELeague Group D, and should be a fucking amazing playoffs depending on how the brackets work. See you later.